Good morning, everybody. My little wheel's still spinning, so I'm not sure if you guys can see me. So I'll wait a couple of minutes to get started. I hope everybody's having an absolutely wonderful Friday morning. It's Friday, best day of the week. It's the excitement of what's going to happen over the weekend. Hopefully you have great weekend plans. It's summertime. COVID is starting to wrap up, and we're getting some more abilities to go out and do stuff, which is very exciting. Okay, everybody, everything seems to be kind of working, except I just moved something. There we go. Okay, so good morning, and thank you for joining me so much on my Facebook Live. I appreciate you taking this time to spend with me and learn more about dog training. So this week's going to be a little different format. I'm going to talk for a little bit, but then I'm going to, oh, something's saying it's too low. You'll have to tell me if you're having problems seeing me because something is telling me something is too low. So it might be my signal. We're getting, it looks like a thunderstorm. So that could be what's happening, and hopefully it resolves itself quickly. So say hello, tell me you're here. Thank you so much for joining me, taking the time to talk about dog training with me. Today, the format's a little different. Today, it's going to be you asking me questions. I just have a little blurb to talk about, and then we'll get started to see if you have any questions. Let me double check and see if any questions were on have come in through the actual event I posted, because that's where I asked people to leave questions um, before. And if you're listening to this, make sure you're on my Canine Essentials with Paula Hoger page. Otherwise, I will not see your questions till after the fact. Perfect. Okay. So today I wanted to talk about why use an anti-pulling device. There are a lot let's talk about what an anti-pulling device is. There are a lot of anti-pulling devices on the market. And I'm sure I've not even seen some of them. My favorite right now, because things change. My favorite used to be different, and now it's a head halter. I like a head halter because to some extent, they're all punitive. They all work because they make the dog uncomfortable when the dog chooses to pull, and therefore the dog. I like the head halter because it also gives me control of the head, which means if my dog were to react at something, I can turn the head away. And dogs are great that when they're not looking, they tend to have a much easier time controlling themselves and stopping the reaction. So that's why I like the head halter. There are some concerns with the head halter that I've definitely had about damaging the neck. Sure. On shorter dogs, I use a Nutrix head halter because it attaches at the back of the head. And I like that for shorter dogs because I'm not so worried about them getting their head twisted up like this. Um, I've seen people with Halties or gentle leaders on a flexi. That is about as dangerous as it gets. If your dog was running flat out and gets stopped dead by its head being twisted, guaranteed you're going to do damage to that dog's neck and spine. But also remember, allowing your dog to pull on leash is also doing a horrendous amount of damage to their neck and spine. So pulling on leash is seriously damaging. My very first dog pulled on leash. Um, and I remember my trainer telling me to use a Halti, and I didn't understand, and I didn't. And I then went to a correction trainer and used a choke chain, and that didn't work. And eventually we ended up with a prong. And in the grand scheme of things, use correct to be adjusted regularly throughout his life. I get my dogs adjusted by a chiropractor regularly anyways because they compete in agility, so they use their bodies quite a bit. But you could tell when his neck was sore because he'd sleep against the wall with his head like this. So his head, the wall would be supporting his head, and I knew right away he needed to be adjusted. So always remember that you're doing a lot of damage. choke chains I find are pretty well useless. So that is not the ones, so the easy walk, the ones that go, and the jaywalker, the ones that go across the chest. The reason they're not my favorite is you don't have control of the head, but also it's really hard to keep them fitting properly. And if they start to drop across the front of the shoulders, they're affecting the dog's gait. So if you're walking your dog on one of these every single day, you will shorten your dog's gait because something's touching his shoulder. And eventually that will affect how his body works. So again, physically, I prefer the head halter out of all of them. So why use one? I find most dogs at approximately 3 to 5 months become, as adolescence starts to kick in, become overwhelmed by their environment and have an inability to control themselves. Walking on a loose leash is really hard. I always think of it as driving your car when you're late without a speedometer. Without the speedometer to go, hey, hey, you're going too fast. Hey, hey, you're going too fast. And this is what I feel. The head halter is like the speedometer. You can choose to ignore the head halter and continue to pull, but on a whole, the head halter is going to help the dog control himself in different environments. Of course, if your dog's totally losing his mind, the head halter is not going to help. But then I would suggest to you that um, you need to be doing some ODR game, and you may be putting your dog to environments that he is not mentally ready to handle and need to go pull back on your training a little bit and assess what's going on. So with the head halter or with any anti-pulling device, it helps them stay in control of their body. And then what I expect with a dog walking on leash is for them to look around and understand nothing's available when you're walking on leash. When you're on the leash, you're expected to walk on leash, not to go visit dogs, not to go pee on a bush. Yes, if they need to go to the bathroom, I pull over and say, go to the bathroom. And they go to the bathroom, and then we keep walking. This allows me to take my dogs anywhere and not be worried about them dragging me over to somebody to say hello, or dragging me to a dog to say hello, or dragging me into a bush to pee, especially those boy dogs. Um, if you regularly take them on leash walks where really what you're doing is teaching them to go to the bathroom on leash, then yeah, whenever you take them for a walk, they're going to try to pee on every single thing you walk by. That's what you've taught them. So you've got to really decide what you want when you're walking. Um, so with an anti-pulling device, yes, that helps them control themselves, but you also have to make sure when you're walking, you aren't giving them a whole bunch of opportunity to pull. It is almost impossible to never let them pull. We all do it once in a while. You just let them. You're getting to the car and you're getting your keys out and your dog pulls towards the car and you let them. This is why pulling on leash is so prevalent in today's dogs. So my dogs get their halties, gentle my dogs at some point. I had one dog who never got used to his halty, but was perfectly fine with the new tricks. Usually my current dog has a gentle leader because it came in red. No better reason. I like the halty better than the gentle leader because it has a clip that goes onto the collar. If she were to get the gentle leader off, which she won't, so I'm not worried about it, but some dogs at first argue and back out of the gentle leader. So if she were to get that gentle leader off, she would be free. Where the halty also has a secondary clip onto the collar, which means if that small chance your dog were to get that thing off, you still have him on the leash, which is a safety thing. I also like the halty has done some, the gentle leader looks the same as it did 20 years ago. The halty has made some beautiful additions, like the clip to the collar, and they padded the loop that goes over the nose. So it's more comfortable for the dog. The other thing is with a head halter, there are some pressure points that are being pressed that for some dogs makes them calmer. I've had clients who use their head halter in the house to help the dog understand how to stay calm. Okay, so I put a head halter on my dog when they're approximately 3 to 5 months, as soon as they start to pull, and then I take it off when they stop pulling. How do I know when they stop pulling? You stop needing it. Like you can tell the dog comes out and he's not like, he's just like, yeah, I walk. You might get to the end of the leash and then he backs off. It's easy. That's when I start to take the head halter off. And then I usually clip it to the end of my leash. So it's always there ready to use if the dog all of a sudden's like, I'm too excited, I go back to pulling. This to me gives the dog, never gives the dog the opportunity to learn how to pull. Because whenever they're out in public on a leash or out on a leash if necessary, they're always on a head halter. So the habit of pulling never gets established. That means by the time they're a year and a half to two, really depends on the dog, I start taking it off. I took Wicca shopping with me the other day at a garden center, and I don't recommend us switching back and forth. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, because that means your dog will walk one way on a buckle collar and one way on a head halter, and therefore will need the head halter to walk well for the rest of their lives. So once that habit of self-control is created, then it's really easy for my dog to be on a regular collar. With my dogs, how I do it is the head halters are always a potential. What that means is I have discovered the first night we get to camping, my dogs are a little wound up. So excited, new things, the whole bit. I put them on the head halters so that our first couple of walks through the campground, they have no choice but, it helps them to stay calm and under control. So many smells, possibly critters, people, dogs. And then usually by the second day, I don't use it anymore. Sometimes, especially with a young dog, I might use the head halter throughout camping. I'll be honest, I walk my dogs off leash every day. I do not walk them on leash every day, but I do take them to enough places on leash. The other situation I use them is I go visit my sister in Toronto. We go for big long walks, like an hour and a half, and I put their head halters on because I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to train my dogs. I want to go for a walk. They're coming with me. I don't want them to learn any bad habits. I don't want to think about walking. I want to just enjoy a walk with my sister while we chat. So I put their head halters on and then I don't have to think about it. Other than that, again, they're there, they're in my car, they're ready to use if I need them. But other than that, they tend to go just on buckle collars if I'm going out or going for a short walk or anything like that. So I haven't seen any questions, but before I sign off, because that was my spiel for today, tell me, do you use an anti-pulling device? If you use one, why? Or which one? And if you don't use one, why? Why have you chosen not to use one? I am not saying you cannot teach your dog to walk on a loose leash without one. I am saying it's much more work, and that seems like a make work project for me. To me, I want to teach my dogs in the easiest way possible to give them the information without suppression so they understand what I want, so I can reinforce what I want and get on with it. Um, so yeah, let me know if you have any questions or anything like that, and then I'll sign off and leave you to get started on your wonderful weekend. Okay, guys, I'm not seeing any more or any questions. Let me come up with some questions that were sent to me yesterday after I posted about this. So, my dog doesn't like the head halter is a question I hear all the time. Yes, my dog doesn't like the head halter either, but it's like seatbelts. You know what? We all wear seatbelts, or most of us wear seatbelts. I was one of those people that hated wearing seatbelts and got 2 tickets and a warning before I was like, fine, I'll wear my seatbelt all the time. Um, but nobody likes to wear seatbelts. I heard a trainer. That's how the head halters are. I spend a lot of time, as soon as I get my puppy at 8 weeks old, you can go back and look at the Canine Essentials group. I have videos of me working with Wicca when she was 10 weeks old, teaching her to put her head halter on. So I teach my dogs to enjoy having their head halter put on right from the day I get them. So when I need it, they're totally comfortable with it. I start off rewarding heavily so they get comfortable with it. And I find after about a month of wearing it, they understand it's part of life. It's funny. A lot of puppies, when you first put on their collar, hate their collars on and will fight and scratch. But nobody goes, oh, my dog can't wear a collar. He doesn't like it. Or maybe some people do, but most of my clients don't. Where the head halter, they're like, but my dog doesn't like it. That's fine. If your dog starts to, once it's on, I don't allow the dog to rub between my legs, rub their face with their paws, or rub their face on the ground. I just, whenever they go to do that, I take their collar and I just stop them. And when they're calm, I let them go and we continue on, not allowing them to create the habit of doing all those things. I've seen dogs make their noses bloody by dragging them on the sidewalk, trying to get their halty off, um, or they're constantly sticking their head between people's legs. Just don't allow it. It's just not, I'm not going to allow that. I wouldn't let you go up to a person and hump them. So I'm not going to allow you to stick your head between their legs and rub your gentle leader. It's not that bad, people, really. It's just not that bad. And once they get used to it, it's like power steering. The walking is so much better, so worth the effort. If you really can't get over the halty, then honestly, I'd suggest a prong collar. Used properly, it only is uncomfortable, like any of them, when the dog pulls. The goal is not to continue doing what you were doing, allowing your dog to pull you towards stuff and then correct them. No, you walk, hands on your body. If the dog hits the end of the leash, he's like, oh, that's uncomfortable. I'll choose to walk with you. And then you move on. Okay, another question. My dog pulls so much that I can't stop him. Every step he pulls. So in a situation like that, if your dog's pulling that much, I would change the equipment you're using. Whatever you're using, find a new equipment. So if you're using a head halter, go to a different head halter or go to an easy walk. You have to change the equipment because whatever you are currently using is no longer working. The habit of pulling has been established. So the next step is, I'm going to say it, I haven't said it yet, but ODR game. Remember my foundation game of observe, don't react. I would stop walking the dog on leash and I would start doing something like step out the front door and play ODR. Can your dog do that? And at first, if you've got a real puller, one of those dogs that you take a step and instantly hits the end of the leash, then he's going to go, what? What? We're standing still. One of my Facebook Lives coming up is going to be people's dogs don't understand how to stop moving, how to stand still. We never practice standing still. We're always moving with them and they just have to learn how to stand still. So the first thing I would do is just stand still until the dog's brain, and that might take a couple of sessions, until the dog's brain goes, you're not going to let me move, are you? And then he's going to go, okay, what are we doing? Then you can start interacting with him, asking him for simple top of the your landing. Let's say you come out your front door and you're at the top of the stairs. Then I would teach them to go down the stairs one at a time, again keeping the brain engaged. I would do ODR at the bottom of the stairs. Meanwhile, you have to give your dog exercise, so find a fenced in area you can use, or put him on a harness and take him to a park, drive him to a park. So when you get out, he's on a harness, he's allowed to go. Not the criteria you have on the sidewalk when you're walking, but this is more a decompression walk. I'm not saying don't exercise your dog. Let me repeat that. I am not saying don't exercise your dog. I'm just saying walking them on. I get people who are like, my dog pulls. I keep going out and trying different things, but my dog pulls. My first comment is always going to be stop walking them on leash while you retrain some behaviors. Remember my problem solving management, alternative behavior, and then practice. You would start with literally, can you walk up and down your driveway? And then can you walk up and down your driveway and quarter of a block, maybe 10 steps one way, 10 steps the other, and then you expand until you can walk whatever distance you want to walk. But if your dog has a serious habit of pulling, you're going to have to completely change everything for a while you create a new habit. Continuing to do the old habit means you're never going to fix it. And that's why he keeps pulling. Okay. That's it for me today. Have a wonderful weekend and we will see you next week. We'll have another Facebook Live. Bye, guys.